Hey, Brian, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you today.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Appreciate you coming on and sharing this journey and helping some others. Obviously, you have a lot of rich experience, not only running businesses, but coaching folks on improving their businesses and their life. So I thought there was a lot of intersect here and where we can help folks, especially get started, because I wanted to start, there's a few different areas I thought we can go down. One that was really intriguing after doing some research, and I think I see this so much nowadays. I've been talking with so many folks about getting started for years now. One of the big things is we have this lens of social media now, right? Where you can see everyone doing stuff and we're like, oh, that guy or that gal is doing this. That looks pretty cool. They must be having the time of their life. And what we don't realize is that a lot of folks get burnt out by overdoing things. And I know you went through that in terms of some burnout in the past, got overweight, diagnosed with diabetes and the whole nine. And there was a lot of kind of issues there, right? So
You did your homework.
yeah, I appreciate that. And well, so again, I have this conversation, a lot of folks where I talk with friends even, and they're like, oh, Brian, I'm doing this, that, and the other. I'm like, is that good to keep saying yes to stuff? Like maybe you should kind of focus on some areas. So anyways, I want to start the conversation about burnout and your thoughts around that and maybe how you overcame it. Because a lot of people might recognize they have it, but then they have a hard time overcoming it. So you can take it wherever you want in my 6 questions there I threw into one, but I'm kind of curious your thoughts about burnout to start.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say that I am a fellow past member of the Massive Burnout Club.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was horrible. So I'm happy to talk about it if it helps other people. It's funny because I always felt like I was that kind of person who could like take on the world and never stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like keep throwing me everything and I'm a superhero. Like I'm going to say yes to it all and take it on with 110%. And, we had, so just to give some context, we had an agency for, I think around 20 years at the time. And we were also, working, 30 employees, multi-million-dollar agency, working with large clients, like Cisco, Netflix, MasterCard. And I was also traveling 200 days a year, speaking, on a kind of a speaker circuit, if you will, like I said, 200 days a year. And that was all because of, some really incredible things that happened to me that I was really excited about. My books had taken off, my TED Talk took off, like everything really was aligning to what I really wanted in my career. To have like this family and to have speaking and to have an agency, it was like, oh my God. And then I just kept saying yes to everything. Yes to travel, yes to, going places. And it's really, it really hit me hard one day when I was home and I was already on my way to burnout, but I was with my 11-year-old and the one day that I was home and he pulled me aside and he's like, Dad, you're never at my school functions. You're at my sister's school functions. You're not around. You're fat, as only an 11-year-old can say. Right. And you're, and you mentioned a lot of the ingredients that went into that. And I had diabetes at the time. I was really like juicing myself up for massive hit to the chest. And I don't know where I'd be today if that conversation happened, because he really like got me in the heart. Mm-hmm. And I ended up I was in tears on the next flight out the next day to another speaking event. Came home and said to my wife, I can't do this anymore. I'm cooked. I'm done. I ended up she ended up agreeing with me, and over the next 6 months we took time to exit out of the agency. We took time to exit out of speaking I stopped speaking for a year. I basically let go of everything that I was facing and or doing. And then I took a year off for a much less stressful year and tried to figure out what was next for me. And in that time, I started focusing more on health. I hired a health coach. I met with a team of doctors and really started to focus on a healthier me. And over that course of that time, I lost 85 pounds.
Wow.
I'm now not diagnosed medically with diabetes, although it could come back if I put the weight back on. And I dropped my kids off at school and picked them up almost every day. And it was just like the thing I needed that I never knew I needed. That was really it hit me between the eyes because of that one conversation with an 11-year-old. And from that point forward, I was like, wow, this, life is going to change. I'm never going to say yes to everything again. And I'm going to, take life much more, on the path I need to take it on. And it really did. It really is turned around. I mean, I'm living an incredible life right now. Like, I really can't tell you how much joy it brings me to wake up and be every day because of knowing what life was like and how much it wasn't a pleasure. It was just from the outside looking in, it was, but from the inside out, it was a very slow death. So that's what led me to where I am today.
Yeah, it's kind of I actually have an 11-year-old now, so it's kind of thinking about, the conversations that him and I have. So I can only imagine in your shoes, like, how that probably went. Were there any indicators to you personally prior to that conversation that you were going down the wrong path? There was a lot of issues, or were you just like, hey, this is what I signed up for. This is part of success. Like, did you justify a lot of those things you were doing that weren't good for you?
The indicators were there. My ability to see the indicators were not there. Like I said, got diabetes, check. Was massively or medically classified as morbidly obese, check. So I had the checklist of all the indicators. I just didn't know how to get out of the tailspin. And I just thought, well, maybe if I just work harder, then that will lead me to the promised land somehow. And then I can then exit stage left and life will be good. But how is that possible? How does that math work out?
Right.
How do you work harder and exit stage left with knowing you have all these little indicators? So were they there? Yes. Did I know that there was a way? No, absolutely not. I didn't see a way out. I just had to face a moment, my lowest moment, basically. I used alcohol like there's no tomorrow to numb my ability to have to see those indicators. So that's why I wasn't seeing them. I was just like numbing all the way through it. And that led me to a much more blocked view of what they were, to answer your question.
Did you, when you mentioned you had the conversation, your 11-year-old, and then obviously you talked with your wife and had some conversations. Did you cancel a lot of stuff, or did you just say, all right, I'm going to, because you mentioned, hey, we're going to slowly roll out of these things. Like, how did you attack it? Because again, I'm trying to put myself in the perspective, someone today listening and they're like, yeah, I'm doing a ton of shit. Like, I am burnt out. Man, what do I do? Like, what's this first step for them to get out of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's different for everybody. Just because I took the path I did doesn't mean that it's everyone's path. There's different ways that I know you and I probably coached throughout it. But as a path that I took, it was, I really had to take a giant step back. And the only way to do that was to let every single client and employee know that this is what we're about to do. And we just did it. We literally did it in one day and let everyone know in one day that this is what was about to happen. And I just let go of the rope that day and said, I'm clean. And now I'm going to let the dominoes, the domino effect happen, because that's all I know how to do. And so I had to trust myself that was the right thing, that I just need to let go and then find some space at the end of this, knowing that the end of the road was not the end of the road, but the end of this spiral was going to at least give me time and space, which is what I really needed. So the point being, we all need time and space. If we're too much inside of it, we're not going to see it. I don't care if you even have a coach or a therapist or anybody. If you're so pressed into it, you're not going to find your way out without alleviating just even a little bit of time and space, so that you can start to see that you need these people in your life, or you need to let go, like I did, of the whole thing. So wherever you see yourself, you've got to see that time and space to be able to be there.
Do you find a lot of this also comes down to identity? And maybe that's what you went through, is like you were a speaker, author, business owner, like you had all these check boxes next to you of like how people defined you. When they thought of Brian, this is who they thought of. That's hard to push aside for whatever you did, a year, a year and a half, those type of things. How were you able to disconnect from the identity that really you formed over a long time?
Man, that's a good question. That's that's the first time anybody's ever asked me that. That's a great question. So obviously I'm buying time to give you an answer.
Take your time. That's why we do these long form podcasts.
That's such a good question. I don't know if I have just one answer. I think that it was a process. I had to process through in a lot of different ways. I had to go through therapy. I had to go through an AA program. I had to go through a level of just like depression. I had to go through a level of anxiety. I had to go through it all. I had to go through it to get to the other side. That's how I got to let go of those things, because I had built up such an identity around Brian the author, Brian the speaker, Brian the business owner. And that's not who I am.
Yeah.
I'm a much more loving, connected human being. And I really, really feel like I was missing out on the real me in life, that I was able to, be with others. And so there was a total identity crisis that I had to go through to be able to come out on the other side and say, I'm not these things. I am just a warm, loving, connected individual. And I do these things, and I am able to provide this, not the other way around. I think I was in the mode before where it was just, that was the go-to, and I needed to shed that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if you're at a cocktail party, someone's like, what do you do? Like, we always lead with our job, right? That's kind of the default, is leading with a job versus leading with, like you said, no, I'm a bigger person than this. I have so many other things going on.
It's funny now, I don't say what I do anymore. When people ask me, what do you do?
Yeah.
I tell them straight up that being human is my competitive advantage. And they look at me like, well, that's not telling me what you do. And I'm like, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah. How did you come
right? Because
how did you come up with that?
Well, it's part of what I believe in. I believe that I truly, wholeheartedly believe that being human is all of our competitive advantages right now more than ever. And how do we get to our human selves, especially right now with AI and virtual reality and automation and bots and everything else going on? The way to stand out now is just to be your human self, or selves, or human brand, however you want to apply that. So I really think that it's just a piece of who I've always been, is how do we emanate our human selves?
I always find, I just did this exercise. I don't know if you ever do this, but like, you get these LinkedIn connections, and people sometimes just send them. I don't even accept most of them for a time, but then I'll be like, all right, I'm going to accept like a bunch of them, because I want to see, like, within 24 hours, if I'm going to get some sort of automated message. And sure enough, whatever the 15 or 20 I accepted yesterday, I got like 6 or 7 you could tell they're an automated message, versus, when you're getting something personal from someone. It's just so interesting nowadays why I'm actually, let me ask you, like, why do you think people go to the default of automation versus taking the extra step to be impersonable?
Right? Yeah. It's our natural default to have to want to scale.
Mm,
Uh, how can I be in more places than one in any particular moment? Which is kind of at the essence of what you and I are talking about, going back to burnout.
mm,
How do I scale faster? How do I scale more quickly in being in getting technology to help me do that?
mm.
And what ends up happening is we end up making ourselves look bad. We are not scalable, and I know that sounds like it goes against the grain of everything that everyone else says,
Mm,
that we are scalable. We're not. We only have so many hours in the day, and so how do we get ourselves to optimum performance
mm.
to be able to have more quality conversations, to be able to reach the right people? And marketing serves a purpose, so don't get me wrong. There is a time and a place for automation and for other, marketing uh, uh, funnels, if you want to call it that. But there's also a time and a place for being human and inserting human moments of truth, if you will.
Mm.
And I think it's a combination of the two that makes it the best.
Is there any encouragement that you make to folks of that are struggling with that? They're like, yeah, but I got to go faster and whatever. Like anything to start out of saying, hey, try this and just see how it feels. Is there anything you coach on that has worked for others?
In terms of being human,
Well, yeah. Hopefully, they know they're human, but like in terms of doing that human to human connection versus the first thought is I'm going to go in ChatGPT and make something and then send it out.
yeah, I'll give you this. I think that the best place to go is to most companies, even small, medium, large, doesn't matter. They're doing something to bring in business, and if you're using technology to do that, then most likely you're automating. And if that's happening, then you want to walk up to a whiteboard or whatever you can draw on,
Mhm.
and really, just draw out all the different things that you're doing right now. Whether, pull a coworker aside, if you have to pull a group aside, and get it all out, and then take a step back and say, now where are the human moments?
Mm,
Where are those, like, moments where there's a real conversation happening, or a reply, or where are you actually listening?
mm.
Or, listening, then that's going to trigger more human moments. So where is it that we can enrich these things that's going to take place, rather than taking a step back and saying, how can we automate this better and optimize it and get a 2% click rate, and create more, and then compound it over time? Well, this isn't that's not how we respond to things. We respond, most of us respond to, like you just said, that 1 out of 20 direct message piece of content that actually said something real inside of LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that pro because I actually I do a lot of sales mentorship with folks, and I see this all the time of like, well, Brian, we got this list of like 1,000 people or 10,000 people. We're going to send it out, and my thing is like, what are you going to say that's different than someone else, and how are you going to differentiate? Going back to what you said, is like the being human is the differentiator, the competitive advantage. And I always find a lot of folks, their first response is, well, let me just send out. The more I send out to, that means that my percentages go up of the amount of people that may respond. And that's such a backwards way of looking at it. Like, why don't you send out 10 like handwritten letters to people and see how many responses? You probably get more than sending 1,000, cold emails. That's at least how I
Hmm.
think about it, right? But again, I think to your point, if I'm hearing that right, is by putting it on the whiteboard, you're really taking a step back and like, what am I doing in my business? Versus a lot of folks are just so in the business, they don't actually see the full picture anymore. They've lost focus. Would that be right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It depends on the type of business and what type of skill sets, but yeah, I see that. And I agree. And I think that it comes down to the first question that people ask themselves. Um, a lot of times it's the wrong question. How, they might be asking themselves, how can I optimize this to make it better? How can I create more digital connection? How can I warm them up so that I can then punt and ask them, jab, jab, right hook?
Right.
How can I create that kind of level of, digital automation? What if we asked ourselves, how can I give more to this person, to the end user? How can I give more to the end user? Not how can I take from them? And this great book, Give and Take, from Adam Grant, and it goes through givers, takers, and mutual. The mutual category, it's like, I'll give you this if you give me that. But the research says that, and comes down to the fact that the givers win the long game. Mm-hmm. If we play the long game and we know that we're giving for the interest of giving, then over time that's going to compound. The takers do not compound. They get short wins and short bursts in sales and marketing, but it does not win the long game. And so the takers are the companies that you see that show up, they're flash in a pan, even growth companies, and then they disappear. And that's because the culture has been taken down that path. So I think it's much longer tail strategy, a better longer tail strategy, to be able to be a giver and play the long game.
How do you get folks, and it gets to be an individual person, maybe this is a business that's early on, but how do you get them to think more of that long-term vision versus just this short-term win? Maybe it's bringing a new client, or it's we want to hit these numbers next quarter, or whatever it is. Like, because if they go in with that thinking, I'm assuming it's hard to get them to shift to the other side.
Yeah, well, it's got to be done in parallel. So if you're already there, you're going to have to slowly onboard it as a cultural strategy. So it's not like I'd turn off the volume on one and turn it up on the other. They're going to have to slowly, integrate it into the overall strategy. Like I said, if you walk up to a whiteboard and you map out everything you're already doing and ask yourself, where are the human touch points, then insert them into there. And now you're integrating it into your overall approach that already exists. You don't have to turn anything off. You're just adding to it. Try that first. And over time, as you start to see that you're getting more engagement. Engagement is my love language for being the number one KPI, because if you get more engagement, then that means that everything's going to go up. So then you look back 6 months from now, after just integrating a couple of things, and ask yourself, did we keep clients longer? Were they happier? Did they sign on for longer engagements than we're used to? Were they quicker to say yes? There's all these little indicators that'll make it much easier to onboard them in a human engagement funnel than there is in a digital engagement funnel.
Let me ask you this it's a simple question. It's probably a more complex answer, but you're working with a lot of folks. Why don't people change though?
Well, you have to want to change. Nobody's going to change for you. And you have to hit a certain level or a point, I think, where you have to need it. You've hit your rock bottom, or your whatever your lowest point is. That's where I see the most change, is when people really see themselves as somebody that they don't recognize anymore, and they want to change for the better. There is a lot of change that happens inside of companies, but once the culture is set, then I don't see a lot of change happening. I think the change is then a lot of building the planes as you fly it, or creating a lot of immediate demand. So if we create immediate demand, then people are going to change as they start to come near whatever deadline we all faked out and did. So I think it's really at the fundamental baseline of your question, why do we change? We have to crave it so badly that it's going to we're not going to exist without that change.
Well, it goes back to your burnout, probably, right? It's like you were kind of fine with it until you hit that point where it's like, I got to do something, or maybe I'm not going to be at the planet anymore. You know, at some point there's got to be that trigger moment.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. How about yourself?
Yeah, I feel you. I think there, I mean, I talk a lot about taking control, and that goes back to your, like, for the longest time, and I can put 15 years ago on the map. I can probably use other time frames, but like, if you don't take control and say, I want to change, you're going to keep following along the path that you were on, or follow others or whatever, or make excuses of why what you're doing is the right way. So I think control is such a big thing for folks. If you could take control, well, then now you have accountability. Now you have agency to change it. So yeah, I fully agree with you there. Whether you hit rock bottom, that could always be a discussion, because someone may discover, but I think you do probably have to hit close to that. Now, maybe it's actually not rock bottom. Who knows? That could be, but at least it could be a dire situation where you're like, I have to do this different. And I think we all come to that conclusion, you know?
Yeah.
When you're building up, and this is something I think you and I agree on this, so I'm curious how we would coach others, is systems versus goals. Because I see a lot of folks talk about goals, but I'm a big believer, and I think you are, if I did my research right, fact check me on that. But if you don't have the right systems in place, it doesn't matter what your goals are, because you're never going to keep up with it. And that kind of goes along the lines of, once you decide to make a change, well, how do you put the things in place to reach those goals? Can you share a little bit of your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, system, structure, and process are the three areas that I think most companies should be focusing on, and people. I'm also massively interested in putting in those things in any position, any place, because it's going to alleviate the pressure. It's kind of like looking at an old house that you move into. Most of the time, if you move into an old house, then you're moving into old plumbing. And inside of old plumbing is the potential for a lot of leaks. Now, you could go in and you could solve for the leaks, or you could repipe the plumbing. And sometimes it's better just to patch the leak, and sometimes it's better to replace the plumbing. I see structure and process the same way. If the leak is constant and it's just happening over and over and over again, then let's fix the plumbing. Let's actually go in and just replace it. And that's where you're going to see the most benefit. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging, because you're going to have to take time to actually, really figure out where you want to repipe and how you want to see it go through the wall, so to speak, in different areas, or what kind of size piping. So, I mean, there's all these different ways that you can look at it. That's the hard part. But making the ultimate decision is say, we're done with the leak, we're going to fix the piping, will help every company long-term, help every person long-term, if they put in a new piping system in the places that really need it.
I know you can't have the answer for everyone here, but how do they know the leak versus the pipe? Or how do they know, okay, I could just solve this one area, everything else will be good? Like, are there certain questions they should be asking themselves, or indicators, as we were talking about, to kind of know the difference?
Yeah. I mean, is it something where it takes 1 or 2 seconds of your time, and it's a matter of pushing a button and you can make it happen? Or is it taking you 30 minutes to 3 hours? And if you were to add that up daily or weekly or monthly, what's the time value? And then how much are you worth? Just do some simple math on that, and you'll probably come up very quickly with what your time is worth versus how much time you're spending on that, or how much time your overall team is spending on that. Sometimes the simple stuff is automated too. I mean, you can pushing a button doesn't need to happen. Is there an easy Zapier connection that could just push the button for you every Tuesday at 2, and you don't have to do that anymore? Now it just removes that file out of your filing cabinet, so that you just don't have to worry or stress about it. So there's not, to your point, there's not one simple answer. You really have to go through a leaks and piping exercise to figure out and prioritize what makes sense, what's even possible. Maybe some things aren't possible. Maybe the organization just isn't gonna work in the next 3 months. There's no way we're gonna solve that. But here's a set of other 2 things or 3 things we can solve for right now. Well, let's just do those now. So it might just be a prioritization exercise that you go through.
Mm. If we take the other side of the coin, so we're talking a lot about I like the old house analogy, someone that's already in business, maybe they're doing it for a lot of years. But let's say that someone's starting, they're going to start a business today or this year. How do you get them to get the piping correctly so they don't have the leaks early on? Is there any strategies or techniques that you coach folks on in terms of starting to think about those processes?
Totally. Absolutely. I mean, getting your house in order is the first thing that you want to do. And so that you're not always being reactive to everything that comes across your way, that comes your way. So I think, I categorize it. I mean, I have a whole wheel of areas, and they're pretty general. I mean, when you think about it, you've got IT, operations, marketing, sales, did I say HR? And and organizational development, if depending upon the size.
Mm.
And so when you start to break down each category and think about what your plans are now and in the future, you don't want to go too far forward. You don't know where you're going to be in 10 years, but you can go, 1 to 5 years out and say, what's my greatest potential? If I were to grow to this, then what would that look like? And what would I need? Let's just take it all the way back to something that is really simple, like buying email software. If you're going to buy email software that only, that charges you X amount for 500 signups, and then when you get to 500,000 signups, it's be costing you like several $100,000 when you get to it. Well, look at that. Like, figure out that that's something that will happen, and then maybe there's a better opportunity to sign up for something else that's going to be better cost for value, not per function. I mean, I'm talking about buying software, but there's so many different little nuances to each thing that you do within each category. What are the things that you definitely need now, and how do you plan for that so that later you're not saying, I got to switch software?
Yeah.
And now I've got a bigger headache on my mind of actually doing this. And we all know switching email software is never easy, which is why I picked that one.
Yeah. What do you have? So obviously and I like that, where you kind of go through these different, 5 categories. Do you encourage folks to do some sort of business review at a certain cadence, whether it's quarterly or semi-annually, something like that, to make sure that they're still tracking and then can tweak where they need?
Oh yeah, do a business review. I mean, all the big companies do it. Public companies have to do it, and so it's already built in if you're a public company, and you should act, I think, like a big company if you're headed that direction. Depending upon the size that you are, if we're talking about 10 to 10 plus people size of a company, that matters. I don't know if I would do it that often. If I was less than that, it's not going to be worth it, because you're going to be more on the same page. But if you're operating in that direction, then certainly start to be a little more consistent with it. So what's the consistency that you can set up? It's all about being consistent. So if we can set up consistent processes for checking back in on what those are. I was a huge fan of creating budgets. I created budget A, budget B, budget C, and they were really my plan A, plan B, plan C. So if by quarter one, then I knew that we're going to hit these numbers. If we hit these numbers, then I'm sliding into budget A. If we hit these numbers, I'm in B, and these numbers, I better freak out now, and we're in C. And so now I'm already budgeted to them, and all I have to do is just turn the switch to that one and shift gears. And now I know where my operational costs need to be. And then, keeping a spreadsheet and cash flow is important. If you know what your cash flow is, you know what your budget is, and everybody knows what it is because you're very transparent with all of your numbers, you're going to not be surprising anyone one day when that does or does not hit. They're going to know exactly what the plan is and how to head off into whatever path you choose. So I think every quarter you can decide what that is. It's much easier, I found, to do it every quarter, too much to do every month. and not soon enough if you wait a year.
Mm. I like the budget A, B, and C. What is like the like let's say B is the middle microwave of whatever. Like, how do you know A and C? Like, is that a percentage, like 10% higher or lower? Like, how did you equate the numbers for those different budgets? If you don't mind going into that a little bit.
It's not. It depends on the company. So no, it wasn't a percentage. It was it was a trend set. So like if we were, so we were a little over a 20-year company. So I already knew I had so much historical value that I could draw from. So I knew roughly where we should sit, what our stretch goal was, and then what our goal, if we didn't meet it, would be. So if we were less than, and so I would just basically, and that's my gut, to be honest with you. I didn't use a percentage or anything else. I just said, look, here's what we did last year. What if we reach this next year? If we were at 3 million, then what if we could get up to another million? So let's make that the stretch goal. And now let's do a plus or minus. If that's our stretch goal, then the worst thing we'll do is last year. And then the very worst thing is if we don't even make those numbers. So that's how I would do it.
Let me ask you this question. This is a random sidebar, but when I was researching this, I saw this. You're a relentless optimist, you call yourself. Why should everyone be an optimist? Because I'm an optimist. Why should everyone be an optimist? And maybe relentless. I'm curious why you put that in the front of it.
I used to not be. I used to be a person who saw. I was the person who saw everyone would see the possibility, and I'd say, "But what if this happened and it didn't work?" And what I noticed is that when I started to go down that path and consistently went down that path, that's what happened. And then when I changed that, when I started to realize and notice that when I started to think in the direction of being a optimist and looking towards the future with opportunity, that's what happened. And then when I became relentless about it, that's also what happened. So I really believe that the more energy that I put out into the universe, and I'm getting a little bit spiritual now, but the more energy I put out into the universe, the more it comes back to me. And I don't have to be in control of that. It just is. And that's just how it works.
Yeah. No, I love that. Because what you just shared there is kind of similar to me. Like, I think we have a similar, like I used to be always the, glass half empty, like, oh, someone else got lucky. I wasn't good enough. Like all these negative thoughts and negative things. And once I decided that, wait a minute, why don't I look at life at a little different lens? It's amazing how much happier and more fulfilled and how much things are grand when you actually just take a positive outlook on it and you're excited about the world. It's kind of funny. I'm kind of curious. That's why I was asking about that. Cause I think if we all take that, like if we look at a situation and we can say, hey, we can go down, path A or path B, why be negative? I guess is the question. Like why, I don't understand, I guess looking back now, 10, 15 years, like why I was negative. I guess it was a defense mechanism. I don't know. Is that what you find from your clients and stuff, maybe from yourself? Is it a defense mechanism that we're doing?
Yeah. I don't think you're off. I think that it could be defense mechanism. I think, we think we won't be disappointed if we already are thinking that that's the worst that could happen. And so we won't let ourselves down and we won't let others down by thinking along those lines. And I think, part of it might be too that, maybe we're taught that. Maybe it came through our culture. I know, it's part of what I was always taught was to make sure you're looking at it from all sides. And so sometimes when we look at it from all sides, then maybe we look a little bit too much at all sides. Yeah. And that could be a cultural thing. It could be brought down through our families. It could be, who knows? But at the end of the day, I think if we're still, I am a relentless optimist as long as I'm putting my energy in the place where my gut says, hell yes. If my gut doesn't say hell yes, I'm not a relentless optimist. So let's be honest. Like, it's got to be that, like, where is my drive and my passion and everything going? If it's not there, then it's going to make it really hard for me to be an optimist for myself. And I have to stay that path. It's got to be true that way.
That's a good point. What would you say kind of as a lasting impression on our conversation? If you were to encourage folks, whether it's a question you'd ask them, a challenge, maybe it's a piece of advice or insight, how would you close out our conversation kind of if you're talking to the audience and kind of helping them get started? What's something that you would encourage them maybe to do as a first step?
First step in terms of getting started?
I like to think of it, you could be a physical thing, but more on the mental side. If they're stuck, if they're having a hard time taking the leap and doing that thing that they wanted to do, is there any encouragement you'd make to help them get started?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what I think holds every single human back. So what we're talking about at the base of it, I think, is making a decision. Making a decision. So it's the hardest thing that we do, and we do it over 1,000 times a day. It's why I wear a black shirt every day, because it's one less decision I have to make. And I think that making a decision, and I poured myself into thousands of hours for the last 6 years into becoming a decision coach for that reason. Because once we make a decision, it changes everything into what's possible. But I find, sit back on our hands because we're waiting for the right moment, or we're waiting for the light to shine, or we're waiting for the rock bottom to happen. And instead of, like you said, looking at the indicators. So how do you make that change? Well, you might have some blind spots. Maybe ask some friends. Hire a coach, go to a therapist, whatever you need to do to help you cast over what those blind spots are, and help bring awareness to what your decisions are and which one is the best to make. Most people I find are at a fork in the road, no matter where they're at. And if we can continue to make a decision when we hit each fork in the road, we're just going to continue forward into the right place. It just will happen. Yeah. It's the law of momentum and opportunity, right? So that's how it's going to work. So you just have to look at who can help you make the decision if you can't make it yourself, and make it and be okay with it, and know that everything's going to turn out okay.
Love that. And no decision is a decision. Do you agree with that?
I hadn't heard that before. That's a good one.
Right. Okay.
No decision is a decision. Yeah, I guess it is. I guess it is. There is a decision there too, as long as you're consciously not making the decision.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure we underscore that, because some folks are like, as you're saying, they're sitting in the middle. Well, that's also, you're deciding to not make a decision one way or another, right? So I think there's, at some point, I like what you're saying though, is like, go seek it could be anyone. Just start ruminating on it a little bit. And do you feel this too? So we'll end on this, is like that gut feeling, that intuition. You talk about saying hell yes. Like, do you find like if folks feel that, even though they're scared, they should probably go in that direction? Do you find like more times than not, that is the right answer, whether we are fearful or not?
Yeah, I do. I think that that's the right thing, but it has to be their decision to do it. It can't, obviously can't be ours. So as long as they make the decision to do it and they can see the reasons behind it, I don't think that, it's ever, in the moment of decision, we're able now to take action. And it can look like 10 years before you make a decision, and then all of a sudden it becomes easier than we ever thought it could be. And so I don't know if that, I'm just now going down the wormhole, but I think that is the most critical piece, is that people don't sit on it too long and move into a different direction if that's going to be the case, because we have to be constantly learning and acknowledging the fact that even if we're like you said, not making a decision, then we're going to be okay with either where we're at or where we're going, but we made that decision.
Absolutely. Yeah, we took control, as we were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun, man. Where can people say hello to you online? Where do you spend the most time?
You can email me at brian@briankramer.com. That's Brian with a Y, or at briankramer.com. And I've got a newsletter and all kinds of fun stuff there. So feel free to sign up, and I will happily reply if you like something in the newsletter and you want to hear more, or you just want to have a decision session. You're at a fork in the road, and that's something that you want to talk through. I'm happy to do that as well.
Awesome. Brian, this was a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much for joining, sharing some of your wisdom. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I've been hit with more new questions than I think I've had in a very long time. So thank you for winding the brain up and making it work.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it.